Hi, this is Kari, and I am so excited to talk with one of my best friends. I not only get to be best friends with him, but I get to work with him. Literally right next to where we sit for Fresh Living is his kitchen. It's none other than the amazing, the incredible Chef Bryan.
Hey, Kari, that's quite the intro.
Well, you deserve it. You're amazing.
Thank you.
So I have to talk about, I don't know if you remember how we met. How long have you worked here at KTV?
Probably longer than you've been alive.
I doubt that, but good try.
Long time.
Long time. I think I've been here 9 years. And
yeah, I've worked here longer than that.
yeah, you've worked here for a minute.
Double that and add a few years on.
Add a bunch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this, but you and I first became friends over pizza dough.
Oh, that's right. That's right, because you wanted to know how to make pizza dough, and I had made it, and I had extra, and I gave it to you to take home for your little family.
You did. He literally just handed me some amazing pizza dough, and I went home and made pizza, and it's awesome, by the way. As you know, your pizza dough is incredible, and
Thank you.
that's how we became best friends.
I didn't realize that.
All because of pizza dough.
Oh, well, pizza, brings friends together.
It brings us together. Okay, so you are obviously on our noon show. You're our noon chef. And you also have Cooking with Chef Bryan, your show that's on every weekend. When did you know that you loved cooking? What do you remember an age that you were, a moment?
Oh, totally. I've always loved cooking because it was my alone time with Mom in the kitchen. And none of my other siblings liked cooking. They didn't want to be with Mom. They wanted to be outside or whatever. But whenever Mom would make bread or, start on lunch or dinner, I always loved being underfoot because I had her all to myself. And so I really enjoyed cooking because it was my alone time with Mom. And when you have a house full of kids, you very rarely get alone time with Mom. And so that's where my love for cooking came from.
That is so special. Mama Woolley, we love her so much. Do you remember what you would make with her? Are there some favorites that stand out to you?
Absolutely. Breads. That was my favorite. I loved the chemistry because she'd let me knead it. She'd let me add the flour into it. She'd let me shape it and bake it off. And so baking really was the essential between my mom and I that I enjoyed, because that is something you can allow a child to work with easily, because you're not with hot oil, you're not with, hot saute pans or things like that. It's dough. And so you work with dough, you can knead it, you can shape it, and then bake it off, and you have your fun little bread loaf.
It's kind of like Play-Doh. You get to play with it, but then you actually can eat it.
It actually is. But in a good thing. Play-Doh, even
Don't
though
eat
it's supposed to be safe, non-toxic to eat, I would not recommend it.
Don't eat it. Right.
Yeah.
Did she influence you? What kind of things would she make for you as a family? Do you remember when you were a kid?
Well, very much so. And when I was a kid growing up, all of your friends would have Wonder style bread with their lunches.
Yes.
And that was the cool thing to do. And I had to come with homemade bread.
Isn't that weird? I remember that. Like, homemade stuff wasn't cool.
It was not cool. And I was so embarrassed as a kid with that, because I'm like, I just have homemade sandwich and some chips and some cut up carrot sticks, and Mom made cookies and put, here my typical brown bag lunch. I was so embarrassed because, I had other friends that would get hot lunch, and then others that would have Wonder Bread. And now looking back at that, I would kill for a sandwich with my mom's homemade bread.
Food.
When she comes to visit me, the first thing I say is, Mom, will you make some bread?
Oh.
So.
Maybe she can make us some at some point.
Right.
Yours is just as good. I know you're really good at sourdough too. It's a science, right?
It's a total science. It's a science. It's a feeling. It honestly is love. I always, impart in what I'm making love for it, because it is a passion for me.
Yeah.
It brings happiness to people. It brings people life. It's just the whole thing, because everybody has to eat. So it's the common denominator of humanity. And what greater privilege to be able to prepare that for people than knowing that.
That's pretty cool. Well, you should see behind the scenes in the kitchen in between takes, how many people come in and are like, hey, do you have any extra? Hey, what are you doing today?
It's true. Today in the kitchen, I had fresh tortilla chips, and I finally had to shoo people away because they were eating all the tortilla chips. And I'm like, I got to have a handful at least for TV guys. Come on.
I had a couple, I have to confess.
And I'm glad you did.
They were so good. Okay, let's go back and start about your career in cooking. So you knew you loved cooking when you were little, and you'd spend time with your mom and get that one-on-one time. But when did you start your career, and did you have any training?
Well, do you know, I'm old enough that there really there weren't culinary schools. There were some on the East Coast, there were some on the West Coast, but unlike today where, you round a corner, they're as common as, a church house on every corner for that instance. It wasn't that way when I was younger. And so I actually, when I was in Logan many, many years ago, trained with a master chef. And I say trained at this point, really, I was working. That was my job. I mean, that's how I paid my bills. That and any other types of culinary gigs that I could get catering. I was totally hands-on. I learned the language in the kitchen, professional kitchen, which generally can make a sailor blush. We won't go into that. But, if you think about it, I always tell people, if you're a chef and you have 1 second to say something is burning clear across the kitchen, there are specific words that will draw attention quickly so that can be remedied. But, I was very, very lucky. I learned how to wash dishes, which to this day are still one of my favorite things. I learned sauces. I learned grilling and searing and fixings and temperaments. And the first day that the restaurant opened, that I helped the chef that I was working with open, there was a woman who started choking, an elderly woman, and I even learned, which I already knew, but actually got to practicum it, Heimlich maneuver, and saved her.
Oh my goodness, this was like the first week or something?
The first night. It was a Christmas dinner, actually, and it was a group from Utah State University that was there for their Christmas party at the restaurant where I was at. And started choking. And let me just tell you, you can't be gentle. And I felt really bad because at that time, even probably at this time of my life, it was an elderly woman. And I was so afraid I was going to crack her ribs.
But you saved her life.
But saved her. And, you sit and you feel somebody limp in your arms who's blue. And then all of a sudden you feel the life of breath come back in them. And
that is so scary.
They are alive again, practically. It was scary. It was very scary, but it gives you an appreciation for chewing your food.
Yeah, chew your food, people. Absolutely. Is there anything, once you started getting into the industry and cooking and baking, anything that you thought you would love that you actually don't really love? Is there anything you don't enjoy making?
That's a fun question because there really isn't anything I don't enjoy making. I don't like Jell-O, so I don't like to eat Jell-O, but I have made lots of it in my career. And so really just my favorite thing are the home-cooked meals, the things that I grew up with, the comfort foods of the home, roasts, potatoes, things, good, basic nutritional cooking. And so I'm not really a fan of the high-end gastronomy dishes that are so odd to look at.
And time-consuming.
And equipment that needed to make them. And so I'm not really a fan of those. I love to try them every once in a while, but you give me a good old Sunday roast and potato dinner anytime, and I am a happy camper.
Like the best. Well, I think you make, especially on your show, Cooking with Chef Bryan, and then on the noon show, you do things that are realistic, right? You do delicious meals that are actually feasible, for the family.
They're meals that reflect my childhood growing up. They are foods that I grew up with in Idaho. They are foods that may have a little twist on them to bring them up to date a little bit. But they're foods that you're going to be able to find in your grocery store that are on sale, perhaps, which I always look for. And things that you're not going to order one bottle of a seasoning that costs $90 and you use a half a teaspoon out of it and the rest of it spoils and you throw it away. I'm not that type of a chef. I love to prepare foods for the home chef to be successful.
Well, and you do it well. Are there anything other than your first job that you just talked about, anything in your career that stands out as a highlight, other jobs that you've worked besides KUTV, because we know this is your favorite?
Honestly, one of the greatest highlights of my career was just recently my cookbook. I have worked for years and years to bring that to the limelight, to bring that forward, to be able, and earlier on in my career, I got so many rejection letters from publishers when I tried to publish a book. You'd send out samples and they'd say, no. And even a local publisher here in the Valley, which I won't name, even they said, yeah, we're going to do that. And then all of a sudden they just crushed it and said, no, we're not going to do it.
A lot of no's.
And it devastated me. I mean, it was very, very depressing. And so to make a long story short, I decided you create a website in today's age, and that's basically your electronic cookbook in today's age. And I got so tired of waiting for the web people that I worked with to actually have to put recipes up, to make changes, updates, etc. I thought, well, I'm going to go back to school, and I'm going to learn how to do web programming.
That's right. You did this yourself.
Yes. And so I did go back to a local community school, college here in the area, learned web programming, did my own web page. I manage my own web page now. And because of that web page, I had the publisher of my cookbook contact me from New York,
Wow.
Skyhorse Publishing. And honestly, I thought it was a joke because, I'd been this route before. I'd been this route with publishers contact me, let's do this. And they're like, blah, la, 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 la. And here came the one question, well, what sets you apart? And honestly, I got so full of anger and just like, I'm so sick and tired of people saying that. Honestly, as almost sarcastically, I said, you know what? I design menus for the home chef to be successful. And all of a sudden there was a silence on the phone. I was serious because that's what I do, but that doesn't impress a New York publisher. All of a sudden they said, love it. We'll send you a contract. And that was the start of my book. And so you know that because you went through the whole process of my cookbook, Instapot cookbook.
You worked really hard on that.
It was fun. Well, you helped me. You helped me get some pictures for it and things like that. And then when it finally came out, that first book, you opened up the mail.
So exciting.
You open that mail and there are 5 publisher copies of your book that's coming out. And there is no feeling in the world to describe the amount of joy that came to me because I'm like, I finally have my own book that is now published internationally. It's all over the world in English-speaking countries. And it was a great accomplishment in my career. It was a highlight for me.
Well, you should be proud of that. And
Oh,
there's so
thanks.
many delicious recipes in it. What is it called and where can we get it? So
The
people want to buy
Everyday
it.
Instapot Cookbook. You can get it on Amazon. Barnes & Noble carries it. You can Google it. I have on cookingwithchefbryan.com, my homepage. There's a link to Amazon where you can just order it. And it's everywhere. You should be able to get it everywhere. So
You should definitely have a copy because it is great.
It's
really
just
good.
fun.
And it's easy to do.
Yeah.
They're easy recipes.
Yeah.
Okay, so transitioning into your career in TV, how did you know you wanted to? Because imagine being a chef in a restaurant is a lot different than being a chef
There's
on
no
TV.
comparison. There's no comparison. First of all, chefs on TV have to understand every aspect of the chemistry aspect because if something doesn't work out in a split second, you have to be able to correct it.
Well, you're live.
And I'm live on top of that. And so
Yeah.
it's not like I'm doing a recording. We can do a retake if something doesn't work out. It's live. And so it has to work out. You don't have that option. And so I was teaching culinary classes a million years ago. Yeah, I'm old. And I happened to be, when Sur La Table was at the Gateway, teaching a class there, and Fox News called at that time and just asked the kitchen manager if they had a chef that could come on and do a once-a-week program. And I happened to be standing right there, and so they just passed the phone to me, and that's where that started with Fox. Now, previous to that, I was on Cache Valley Television up in Logan, Utah, teaching up there as well. And then I started doing once a week on Fox News for years. Fred Wicks, the legend, the Gabby Gourmet, who was here
totally
at
remember
Channel
him.
2, the legend, retired. Channel 2 reached out to me and asked me to apply for the position. And honestly, I didn't want it. Because I lived in Logan. I didn't want to have to come down every single day because it was every
long
day.
drive.
And that's a long drive from Logan to Salt Lake City, although people do it. I didn't want to have to go through Sardine Canyon, the winter, just the drive. I didn't want to do it. So I went through and they said, well, could you send in some demo tapes of what you do? Which, honestly, at that moment, I rolled my eyes because I'm like, how many times have I been on Channel 2 doing cooking segments? I was on Fox once a week. I did Channel 4. I did Channel 2. And so it's like, you know who I am. You know what I do. You've worked with me for years. And so, begrudgingly, I said, fine. And so I sent them a video, a cooking show video that I had just done in Logan. And that was it. They offered me the job, and I was thrilled by it. And 2 weeks after I had moved down to Salt Lake and took this position, the assistant news director called me and said, we're probably going to have to just let you go now because of budget things and this and that. And I'm like,
2 weeks?
I just moved. I just quit my whole life up in Logan.
I did not know this
and
about you.
And I moved to Salt Lake, started filling in for Fred Wicks, and I was told that I was going to be let go because of budget, whatever. I seriously, for months, it was up and down. You know, you probably won't be here tomorrow because of this or that or the other. Yeah, imagine that, upheaving your whole life, selling your condo that you owned up in Logan, moving to Logan, having to rent a room from a friend because, you know, you didn't have the means to buy a new home down here. Yeah. And then starting a new job and then being told, oh, you're probably going to be let go tomorrow. So it was devastating. Luckily, it worked out.
It looks like it did.
But it was kind of scary. It was touch and go from the beginning.
Well, that is scary because you risked it. Good thing you did because you're here now. And
I did.
We have you. We see you on the noon show every day making these delicious things. How do you come up with the recipes? My producer and I, Mackenzie, we were talking about this, just thinking how difficult that would be every single day to come up with a new recipe that you can actually also do in the 90 seconds or whatever you're allowed during your TV show.
It is a challenge. Not going to belittle that one, but a lot of times, as you know, I talk to you. I ask, "Oh, what did you have for dinner?" or "What is your favorite food?" I'll ask some of the other employees, "What would you like tomorrow for lunch?" Because a lot of times people can come in and eat what I make, and I get ideas. Since COVID and all that, I really don't go out to restaurants anymore. But when I do, I like to look over the menu. I like to see what options they have. You know, I look online at what's going on. But most importantly, Kari, I go to the grocery store and I see what's on sale. And I'm like, oh, well, pork roasts are going to be on sale right now. Why not do something with pork roast? You can do a pork roast. You can do pork sandwiches. You can do pulled pork. You can do pulled pork salads. You can do, there's a whole bunch of variety of things that you can do with it. And then I just kind of feel out what's on sale, what's at the store, what people can do at home with what they have, and create the idea of the recipe from that.
Well, and I know the audience appreciates that because we're all trying to save $1 here and there, especially right now.
Especially right now.
So that is so helpful. I know when you go on vacations too, you'll come back and you'll, say, ooh, this inspired this or this inspired this meal.
I do a lot of things when I go out on vacations, from menus and food that I have on vacation that I thought was delicious that I think everybody should try. And then I'll adapt it so it will be more conducive to the home chef in their kitchens at home. And do it.
Okay, biggest question of this podcast.
Dun, dun, dun.
Does Ron Bird always eat your food?
Always. Ron Bird, he is a hoot and a holler.
He's awesome.
He does. He, for whatever reason, I have no idea, takes ownership of what I do and expects that to be his lunch.
He always gets a special plate. I know this. It's very nice of you.
He does. He gets that presentation plate, and it's a thrill because as much tormenting and teasing as Ron Bird and I do back and forth bantering on TV, he is a dear person, and I just think the world of him.
He is. Well, and you're wonderful to all the employees here because if you have extra food, you'll
always
leave it out, and there's always a line, so people are going to eat it. Is there anything that you don't? Okay, so you said Jell-O. You don't like anything else that you don't love to eat?
Not really. I lived in Brazil as a missionary for the Mormon Church at that period in my life. I ate many very odd things in Brazil. Jell-O, I just don't like. I don't like the texture of it, so it's just not something.
It's not really my favorite either.
It's just not. But honestly, I didn't grow up in a household where you had an option of what you wanted to eat.
Yeah.
This is what was for dinner. If you wanted dinner, this is what you had. We were not wealthy. We didn't have money growing up as children. So when Mom made dinner, that's what was for dinner. And we loved it.
That's what you ate.
We didn't know any different.
Yeah.
And so we loved it. And but I just remember I never liked Jell-O.
That's okay. We won't judge you for that. Anything you... I actually can guess one of your favorite foods. I know you love sandwiches.
Love sandwiches.
Like a club sandwich, right?
Any kind of sandwich, because you don't have to cook anything. It's just so easy to do. You just go home, throw some bread, a couple of slices of meat, some cheese, lettuce, tomato, whatever.
And here you go.
And you have a yummy, yummy little dinner idea.
Is there a secret ingredient or an ingredient that everyone needs to have in their kitchen that people may not think about that you just love to use?
Salt.
Salt.
How's that for one?
Salt your food, right?
Because everybody, all the health things, they're saying, no salt, no salt, no salt. But you have to have sodium in your diet for a healthy body.
Sure.
And of course, there's always exceptions. You should always check with your doctor if that's the case. But you have to have sodium for a healthy diet in your thing. Just like anything else, don't go overboard on it.
Right. Well, and it tastes good. Like salty fries. Oh my gosh, you make the best fries too.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so we are going to do what I call the fast five. We're going to ask you 5 questions. You just say what's off the top of your head. What's one thing you can't live without?
A G-rated show, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Soda. I love like Coke Zero.
You do.
Yeah.
You like that with your ice in there. I
Pepsi
see you
Ice.
drinking
Yeah,
that.
Pepsi Zero.
Who do you look up to most in your life?
In any regards?
Yeah.
My mom.
Aw.
My parents in general, they're the best.
That's so true. I've met both of them. They're wonderful people.
Thanks.
What never fails to make you laugh?
You. Kari always makes me laugh. She always smiles, and she comes dancing through the kitchen. And how can you not laugh and smile with that?
Well, when it's Taco Tuesday, you got to do a taco dance,
Yeah.
right? What are you most excited about in life right now?
Just life in general. I love life.
You are that way. You do love life.
Life.
That is very you. Your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Christmas.
Because it's magical. It's
is
just
magical.
magical from childhood to today. It's just magical.
I love the holiday too. I don't know if that was 5 questions. Was that 5?
Oh, I
think
don't
it
know.
was. Okay, maybe
You
it was
can
more
ask
than
one
that.
more if you want.
Okay, one more. Favorite place to travel?
Oh, Prague. I love Central Europe. It's just so beautiful. History, food, history, sightseeing. It's beautiful.
Prague. It's on my bucket list for sure. Okay, so one more time, where we can get your book and what it's called.
The Everyday Instapot cookbook, you can get it on cookingwithchefbryan.com. The link to Amazon, it's in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere fine books are sold. How's that?
Absolutely. And when can we catch you on air, on
Every
TV?
day, Monday through Friday from 12 to 1. I'm part of the noon news on Channel 2. You can also catch me on the weekends, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. right on Channel 2, KUTV.com for Cooking with Chef Bryan.
And maybe at a grocery store here and there, you might see him out too.
They do, and I appreciate everybody who says hi. Thank you.
You're so friendly. You're just awesome. Thanks for doing this podcast.
My pleasure.
I love you so much.
Loves you.
It's so great to get to know you a little better. And make sure to listen and rate and review and subscribe to our podcast. And we will see you next week.